This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's going on, Real MVPs? Welcome into another episode of What's Your Fantasy? Brandon Swanson, and across the table from me, it is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And we are here again another week. We are really excited about it. Doing things a little bit different this week. We're going to go with a different angle. We're going to dive into a little of NFL here as we are reaching summertime, because if ESPN is already putting out their rankings for quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers, we can talk about what we think, right?
I even looked at it, and this is something that we didn't deal with last year, because obviously we weren't a podcast until, I want to say, a week before the actual season started. But on the onside kick, this week last year, we were already starting our fantasy football rankings, where we went through every position and ranked them 1 to 32. Like, hey, this is the top guy, except for like wide receivers and running backs, because of course it's like sometimes you're a wide receiver on the, I don't know, Oakland Raiders some years, and you're not a top 32 wide receiver in the league. But we were doing those for the onside kick last year. That's something that we didn't even think about doing fantasy rankings. Maybe we do them, maybe we don't. But it's good to get some football back into our veins, because I'm jonesing for it. I love basketball, love baseball, but I'm jonesing for some more football.
Well, before we dive into all of that, have to put it out there again for anyone who is looking to support this podcast or support the channel. Make sure you head over to patreon.com and become one of our loyal patrons. We have a number of them. They do really great stuff for us, and it starts at just $1 a month that you give and help support us. It helps support us in trying to get a new studio, which is what we're trying to do here. It definitely is going to help us to achieve some of our goals, and we appreciate any of your support and all of your support. So again, head over to patreon.com, become a patron if you so choose. And if you really appreciate what we're doing here at MVP, we appreciate you, every single one of you.
Yeah, it's a little warm in the studio today. Like, in the thing that and yet again, every single time we talk about Patreon, I mention the studio because, Brandon, we've unofficially decided that we're in a 10 by 12 box, and that's our studio. We also do not control the temperature in this room. Depending on when the building has the heat on, it could be middle of summer. If the heat's on, the heat's on. It's a little toasty in here today. This is where air conditioning would really be great for us, and that's what we get with a new studio. We get comfortability, Brandon, on top of better content for them.
I'm really all about comfortability.
Well, we don't want to be sweating in here. We don't want to do... Actually, scratch that. One day I would love to do a shirtless podcast, but I don't want that podcast to be today.
Neither do I.
Brandon's like, I don't know if I ever want to do a shirtless podcast.
Neither do I. But so before we dive into what we're going to talk NFL, we have to do our bi-weekly update. Ricky, how are we doing with our fantasy baseball league?
It's changing by the minute, because as before we hit record, we were down from 84.5 total points to 81.5. We're back up to 82. We basically changed where we were tied for stolen bases. Somebody got a stolen base as we were talking, so we're back up into third there. But you know what, Brandon? And I'm not saying this to be an asshole, but I kind of am. It's kind of lonely up here at the top. Top of the fantasy baseball standings for us, because we're at number 1 at 82 points. The next best team, which is Team Spencer, owned by Spencer Nolet, he's got now 60 points. We've got a 22-point lead on the second place team. Can you guys hear me from up here? Like, are we in Shazam right now where they're so far apart? Like, we are so far up from you, you can't hear me? Kind of boast about how great it feels to be in first place, because, Brandon, I've just stopped making moves. The only thing I've had to do for our team is just make sure the probable pitchers are in. And it's a great problem to have, but it's great, even better, to be number 1, because ever since we got to number 1, Brandon, we haven't lost it. We've been running away with it.
Well, I think that it says a lot to how good we are as GMs of our fantasy baseball league. I think it speaks a lot to.
I mean, the Vogelbach pickup, he's almost a top 10 first baseman this year.
Good.
In fantasy.
Good. I check on him every once in a while to make sure that he's still doing all right. The other day he went like 0 for, and I'm like, I hope Ricky didn't drop him just because of that.
No, I didn't. He went 0 for. He's actually 0 for right now. 0 for 3.
Oh, the hell with
currently
him.
Against the Yankees, but like.
Yankee.
You look at our team, and it's like our catcher, which is Omar Narvaez. No, there's an L in there I added. Narva, I don't know. I'm screwing it up. Catcher for the Seattle Mariners. He's a top 10 catcher. He's 8th overall. Then Vogelbach, 11th among first basemen. Javi Baez. He's been a huge, picking him over Bryce Harper, I think is the Adam Thielen. I called it in the draft, our Adam Thielen move. He's 3rd in positional rankings. Maikel Franco, he's 8th. Tim Beckman, 14th, might be our lowest. Ketel Marte, 7th in his positional rankings. Cody Bellinger, number 1. Having him has been huge.
Can I tell you really quickly?
Domingo Santana, I told you he was going to be a sleeper.
Speaking of Cody Bellinger, one of the girls that I work with at work, don't tell me she knows him personally. Her home, where she lives, neighbors with Cody Bellinger.
Well, you know what that means.
Neighbors with not only Cody Bellinger, but also with Dustin Pedroia.
That you know what that means, right? You just got to talk to her to get. Cody Bellinger is always welcome on this podcast, especially if he gets us a fantasy championship, Brandon. I think he has to be. He has to be on the podcast because right now our top 2 positional players, Cody Bellinger, who's number 1 for his position, and a guy, I'm going to toot my own horn, tooty toot toot.
Toot.
On the Sleepers podcast, I said, watch out for him. Domingo Santana. He's the number 1 outfielder in fantasy. Our lowest guy is Enrique Hernandez. He's 26th in the positional rankings, but I just haven't dropped him. I haven't yet to drop him. And then our pitchers are great because we're led by Scherzer and Verlander, and we're striking everyone out, especially Caleb Smith. Didn't even know he existed because he's on the Marlins, but he's had
Does anyone really exist on the Marlins?
Exactly. I mean, they're the team that gave up Christian Yelich and thought that was a good idea. They're the Oakland Raiders of the MLB, but they don't have AB.
I will disagree with you on that one. For them, it was a good idea because where were they going? One guy wasn't going to save them.
But what did they get back? A guy who's in the minors right now?
Hey, I'm just telling you. You can't hold on to a guy like that when you're as bad as the Miami Marlins. You can't.
Just saying the asking price probably was a little low. But Caleb Smith, 8 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts, and 11 strikeouts in his last 4 games. Been lighting it up. And that's what we have for our fantasy update. I will stop tooting our horn, although I will wave down to everyone else from first place.
Can you see anybody down there?
No, we're so far out. We're above the clouds. They're all below the clouds. I love you guys.
That's hysterical. Well, Ricky, thank you very much for the update. And now getting into what we wanted to talk about here tonight, and that's talking about, again, NFL. Draft is over. Draft is done with. Guys are on their teams. Very interesting, fun draft again this year, as it always is in the NFL. The Raiders, for as much as Ricky, you and I talked about what could they do, the surprise pick.
It wasn't a terrible fourth overall.
But I don't understand why that pick forced them to put everyone at home and say, yeah, no one come back. We're going to go Clelin Ferrell?
Yeah. That's who they want, number 4.
It's not like some earth-shattering surprise. I'm sorry. It's not.
It's a surprise in the fact that nobody had Colin Farrell mocked in the top 10.
The Raiders did.
The Raiders. And see, that's the thing. And I think I've said this before, but if I haven't, I will say it again. This is the classic Mike Mayock move. Wants to be the smartest guy in the room. Is like, this is the guy I like. I'm going to take him here. So, I mean, classic Mike Mayock move. Bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off.
So, Ricky, let's take a look at, now that these rookies are on their teams, at some of the ones that we like the best and that we think will be early favorites at some really good production on their teams. And I will go first. I will not kick it to you first. I will go first because I'm very excited about saying this one.
I'll be honest. I knew we were talking a lot of football today, but in my head, I'm like, oh, shit. I forgot to ask Brandon which one we're starting with because there were numerous things I threw out to him before the show about football.
So I will go first with the one that I think is going to be one of the most impactful for their team. And I think it's going to be David Montgomery, running back for the Chicago Bears. And it's not because of the Bears. It's because of David Montgomery. I was in love with this guy from way back when, early on in the season. I just think that he's got so many great skills and brings so much to the Bears that they're not going to miss Jordan Howard. The Chicago Bears are not going to miss Jordan Howard.
Well, they got Run DMC.
They're going to have Tariq Cohen. They've got David Montgomery. They've got
Davis is his last name.
Mike Davis. Thank you, Ricky, as another guy there. They are going to be just fine. But this David Montgomery,
and you picked up White Jr. out of FAU.
David Montgomery most likely is going to be the guy. Mike Davis is going to be there to spell. Tariq Cohen's going to be there to play the Tariq Cohen role. I think David Montgomery, and I said it a while back, and I really hate saying it because viewers then go berserk and are, oh, you're an idiot. But
he had a bad combine. But people liked him before the combine.
But I was also going to say he has, to a lesser extent, skills, versatility, moves like Saquon Barkley. To a much lesser extent.
But he's just not he just doesn't have the body that Saquon has.
He doesn't have the same speed, but he maybe doesn't have the thighs of Saquon Barkley, but he's a strong man. And I think what David Montgomery is going to be able to bring to the Chicago Bears is going to be a running back that they are going to be in love with for a very long time. And as a fan of the Chicago Bears, this was a draft that I believe the Bears won and did well at. And I think that David Montgomery pays dividends right away.
Well, and the reason why is the good thing about the Bears is more and more teams are switching to this, or the league is kind of adapted to this, is the Bears are going to be a running back by committee. Like, it's not going to be like Tariq Cohen's a 3-down back and we're going to put, David Montgomery in on third downs. No, it's going to be Run DMC. They're all going to be like ever changing and going out there, keeping fresh legs in there, because Matt Nagy in this offense, yes, they will hand the ball off sometimes because you can't go 100% to the pass game, obviously, but like all of these guys to an extent. And that's why I liked this pickup when I found out about it, you had texted me. I was in Endgame at the time. So I was watching Avengers Endgame. After I got out, looked at my phone and went to Dave. Oh, well, the Bears got David Montgomery. And I'm like, Brandon texted me. I'm like, that'll make Brandon happy because Brandon loved David Montgomery and now can get a Montgomery Bears jersey. I will say, though, there's actually a few running backs in fantasy that I like this year. One of them being David Montgomery, just because, like I said, the running back by committee is going to be so useful there. The other, I've got two for sure, one who's a maybe. My two for sures are, the second one I would say is Justice Hill, who got picked up by the Ravens in the 4th round.
I like that.
That's a running back, team that, to me, yes, Allen had some good games at running back. Like, they got good performances from their running backs, but like you had said many times about them in fantasy, Brandon, you're like, the Ravens don't have that true number one guy. Yeah. And because of that, I think Justice Hill's going to get his opportunities, being a faster back, being able to also catch the ball out of the backfield from Lamar Jackson. The other one, and this is the most interesting one to me, I thought it was a little bit of a reach in the first round, but because of Isaiah Crowell tearing his Achilles, the ball's in Josh Jacobs' court, man. Like, they drafted him in the first round in Oakland. Yeah, the muscle hamster's coming back and will probably be the veteran presence there, but Isaiah Crowell's injury has to mean more touches for Josh Jacobs during his rookie season in Oakland.
Josh Jacobs is going to get a lot of time, I think, over there in Oakland. He's going to get a lot of time because he's able to not only run the ball and be very versatile, but he also can catch passes out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think Oakland is going to need. They're going to need a running back that can kind of a do-it-all type of guy. That's what Josh Jacobs offers, and he's only going to get better. When people started to put him above Damian Harris, and when people started to have him as their number one running back, there's a reason for that. Josh Jacobs is very uber talented, and it's just going to continue to show. I think, very quietly, in a way, this Oakland Raiders team is going to be competitive in this next year. They're going to be competitive in the West. I'm interested in it. I think that the Chargers most likely will win that division, and that is because with everything happening with Tyreek Hill, and we'll get into that, but the Chargers probably look like the favorite there, but the Oakland Raiders, who knows? Maybe they're number 2.
The one thing I want to correct myself, because my brain jumped to a couple years ago when I brought up Allen for the Ravens. I was thinking Gus Edwards last year being the main back for Baltimore. Thing I also want to throw out after throwing out Justice Hill, totally forgot. I'm still not used to Mark Ingram being a Raven now. So that'll be interesting.
But
like
remember,
Kenneth Dixon was good. Like now they've got Mark Ingram. Like how's that running back going to look like? But yes, I agree. Josh Jacobs should get a lot of carries in Oakland.
And they gave Mark Ingram 3 years, $15 million. So they were investing in him. This was probably the last good payday that Mark Ingram's going to get.
Is he going to be a main first running back, or is he going to be? You're the power back, and then we're going to use the other backs to be our kind of scat backs and kind of speedy backs.
He's a ground and pound. I'm really interested. That's a situation to watch, and that's for the summer. That's definitely something to keep an eye on because
obviously he's the best running back on that depth chart.
Justice Hill may very well beat him out. Who knows? I'm interested for that. But also knowing the Ravens, they've run historically with Harbaugh. They've had a running back by committee with 3 guys, with one getting the most work. But they are not shy about having a multiple back committee. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ingram's getting touches, Hill's getting touches, whoever else they bring on and use there will get touches in a game. So that is not something that would surprise me at all with Baltimore.
Now, the other running backs I just wanted to... These are kind of my lesser ones to where they're not going to be my top-tier rookies, but these could be guys that later on in the season, or if you're in a deep dynasty league, you might look at. First one is, you brought him up already. Damian Harris, I'm putting on watch because Sony Michel in his first year with the Patriots had a fairly good year, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, although they didn't score a lot of points in that Super Bowl game. I was reminded about that today because I don't know if you heard, Brandon, but I guess Sean McVay said the biggest problem with the Super Bowl is that he overstudied for it. He overstudied for Bill Belichick.
Sounds about right.
And that's
it's
why
totally something he would say and do.
And that's why they only scored 3 points in that dud of a Super Bowl. But Damian Harris is one that I put a watch on only because I expect him, maybe it's because of what we saw from Sony Michel and Sony Michel not being a bad option for the Patriots. But the other two I am interested about because, yes, Joe Mixon is the guy in Cincy. But Cincinnati went out and got, to me, 2 interesting running backs in Travion Williams, who from Texas A&M is as fast as they come, and then Rodney Anderson from Oklahoma. I don't know how many touches they get because obviously none of them are beating out Joe Mixon, but are they going to be guys where it's like, hey, they're getting, like, for example, Travion Williams. Is he going to get enough touches and enough big plays to where people go, hey, if I don't have Joe Mixon, or if you have Joe Mixon, are you going to be forced to handicap, or handcuff is the word I'm looking for, Mixon and Williams together, especially if Williams turns into the backup in Cincy.
So here's the thing is that Joe Mixon is too good right now. You do not, in my opinion, you do not give him a handcuff. If you're Cincinnati, if you are the Bengals, he's too good. I mean, the guy said he could handle 400 touches. You can't, but that's really nice to hear. You obviously feel good about your body, where you're at, everything like that. Great. But Joe Mixon is your number one workhorse. You do not get in the way of that because he's too good. You have a good guy there to spell him, but I am not a fan of this running back by committee. I hate it.
Well, because you also have Giovanni Bernard.
And from a fantasy perspective, it's bullshit. So I really don't like that. But some of these guys, they're too good. Like, imagine if you were spelling solid time with Ezekiel Elliott. You kidding me? It's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that Joe Mixon is Ezekiel Elliott, but Joe Mixon is a wonderful talent that you want him on the field as often as possible.
Yeah. And that's why, to me, like, maybe these two pickups were for next year in fantasy. We'll really focus on them because, like I said, Giovanni Bernard's still there. He's in a contract year for the Bengals. Plus, we don't know what Zach Taylor is thinking as head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to switch over to the wide receiver position because we've harped a lot on running backs. I look at this position, and to me, there's no clear-cut guy where I'm like, he's going to have a monster year this year. Like, there are guys I like. There are guys that could have good years. But to me, there's no wide receiver where it's like, pick him up, he's going to have a monster year.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Here's my guy, and here's my reason.
Is it going to be the same guy I like?
DK Metcalf.
That's the guy.
And
that's the only guy I would really like.
The only reason is
Chip
the
on his
news
shoulder?
about Doug Baldwin.
Okay.
That Doug Baldwin may be done with football. And that's the only reason why I say DK Metcalf would be a guy that comes in, immediately replaces Doug Baldwin, fills the Doug Baldwin role, and gets potentially the Doug Baldwin stats. He's the only guy that I look at right away and think, DK Metcalf, boom, monster year. But it's because of the news about DW.
See, like, even with Doug Baldwin out there, though, I think DK Metcalf could have a good year. Because the thing I look at is, if Doug Baldwin is not there, I think that may hurt DK Metcalf. Because teams might, hey, let's double team him and really make the rookie uncomfortable. Yes, I know he's got the size and the body, but like if Doug Baldwin's out there and you got both of them as an answer, then it's like, okay, you can't double both of them, and more teams would probably double Doug Baldwin over a DK Metcalf. But he is the guy, like, out of all the wide receivers I looked at, and I'm like, more so not just the Doug Baldwin news, but the chip on his shoulder kind of a thing. Because, like, listening to when the Seahawks called him and he was bawling his eyes out because, like, he was so happy to finally get drafted because he was a guy that many people shot up their boards, top 10 pick, and goes all the way, end of the second round, and they needed to trade up to get him. Another guy I like, but I don't know if he's going to make an impact on the team. I just don't know how big of an impact it is. Paris Campbell with the Indianapolis Colts, because they have their answers at wide receiver, and I wonder how many big plays and will Paris Campbell be put in situations to use his speed to his ability. Because like I said, T.Y. Hilton, he is the guy. He's the number one option. They just get Devin Funchess this year. Is Paris Campbell going to be the speed option? And more importantly, is he going to be the main slot guy for the Colts and Andrew Luck? That's why I look at him. Like DK Metcalf, Paris Campbell, I also like. I'm really also looking to see how Marquise Hollywood Brown does in Baltimore. Because that's one where, yes, foot injury, but Lamar Jackson, all the questions we've had with him, with throwing the ball, more so running the ball. I don't know. I just look at the wide receivers, and there's not one that, like, jumps off the page where it's like, oh, my God, I have to have this guy, and if I don't have him year one, I'm going to be upset.
And I understand that. I am...
Because you're more the dynasty guy than I am. Because you're in a dynasty league still, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
I've never done a dynasty league.
The dynasty league is the league I think is my favorite, personally. But because you're able to then hang on to guys, get a guy like a DK Metcalf, get a guy like a Josh Jacobs, and hold them. And if they become something,
you've got them for almost their whole career.
You have them for their whole career.
Yeah.
Or then you have like, okay, I've got a really good trade chip, type of deal. So I enjoy that. I agree with you in terms of Paris Campbell in the sense of where do you fit in? Where do you fit in? Do you become the number 2? Devin Funchess, I think there's a reason he's not with Carolina anymore. He had some issues. I think some drops issues. I think some health issues.
Not as bad as Ted Ginn with Carolina.
Oh, no.
I'll never forget that touchdown that he
The wide open touchdown?
Yeah, he fucked up for
Wasn't
me
it
in
against
fantasy.
the Colts?
Yeah, it was a straightaway right up the middle, right in the freaking bread basket, and it went right through his arms. I will never forget watching that Monday Night Football. But go ahead. It eats at my heart still. But go ahead.
Yes. Oh, things like that will, man. So I get that. I'm interested, but that's really for any of these guys. Running back, wide receiver, tight. Where are you going to fit in? Where are you going to fit in? Are you going to be the guy? Are you going to be the number 2 guy? Are you going to be the number 3 guy? And how long is it going to take for you to make an impact? A guy that is not necessarily high on the list, but I think can make an impact is A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans. And the reason that I say that is because the Tennessee Titans, you look at them right now, they've got Corey Davis, who's been their number 1 guy for a couple of years now. And then who do they get as their they got Adam Humphries now as their over-the-middle guy. They needed another guy. A.J. Brown is hopefully going to fill that role. To be on the other side, Corey Davis was getting double teams. Corey Davis was needing some help.
Yeah.
I think A.J. Brown can be the guy to give him that help.
Yeah. And I mean, with the Titans, the thing that the thing I question with it is just that fact of a good thing is that Delaney Walker, yes, injury, but he's also getting older. He's 35, I believe. The thing for A.J. Brown I want to see is Humphries is for sure your slot guy. Corey Davis is for sure your number 1. Can A.J. Brown be the number 2? Like I expect at the start where Tajay Sharp will be the number 2 entering camp, maybe entering the year. A.J. Brown taking it over. The big question, though, I worry with A.J. Brown that I don't worry with DK Metcalf. I kind of worry with Marquise Hollywood Brown just because, like I said, with Lamar Jackson running rather than if he runs the ball, Marquise Brown doesn't get the ball. The only thing I question with A.J. Brown is Marcus Mariota or Ryan Tannehill, because Marcus Mariota, if he's healthy, no question, no worry. But is he going to be healthy the whole year? And then if Ryan Tannehill is coming in with that injury, how is Tannehill's rapport going to be, not just with the guys already on this team because he's brand new to it, but to a young rookie? Because A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill are basically in the same boat in Tennessee. They both are buying houses in Nashville for the first time. Maybe Lauren Tannehill staying in Miami because she likes the beaches better. I don't know. Haven't talked to Ryan yet.
Not yet, though.
That's the thing where the quarterback situation in Tennessee might impact the wide receivers. But same thing you're saying with that, I think about with the tight ends, the 3 that I'm looking at. T.J. Hockenson, is he going to be the guy to just take over for the Detroit Lions? Because Bill Belichickian system for Matt Patricia likes to run 2 tight ends, so it's probably going to be Hawk and Jesse James out there. Then I look at Irv Smith Jr. What's his role going to be? Is he going to be the heir apparent to Kyle Rudolph as he's on a contract year this year? And a guy I liked coming in I think it's Kahale Waring. Yes, he might back up Jordan Thomas and Ryan Griffin this year, but is he going to become the main guy for Deshaun Watson in Houston? I just feel like there's too many questions pass catching wise for the rookies this year in fantasy football.
Ricky, anybody else that you want to specifically talk about before we
Murray.
before we move on, and only because I know that
He's going to start, right?
Kyler Murray is just kind of the guy that we all assume is going to be a big name. But tell me your thoughts.
Well, I wanted to ask you this question. If you had to take one of them, who do you think has a better year in fantasy this year, Kyler Murray or Dwayne Haskins?
Kyler Murray.
Why?
Because I think that Kyler Murray has more options around him. I think he has more weapons. To be honest with you, over in Washington, it's like dry. It's bare. There's nothing there. You have Jordan Reed, who's healthy every other day. You no longer have your number one wide receiver.
Definitely
he's
not
gone.
moist in Washington.
And then Washington, they have these other guys who are healthy for maybe half of the year.
True.
There's no consistency. I don't believe that they're going to have a good season over there in Washington just because there's lack of weapons.
Yeah.
However, in Arizona, you have Larry Fitzgerald. While, yes, he's long in the tooth, he knows how to play football, and he's very good at
Christian
it.
Kirk
They've got
coming off
Christian
injury.
Kirk. He's coming off of injury, but even with as how poorly that offense played last year, he still put up some decent stats. He showed some flashes of greatness, things that Josh Rosen probably never will. And Kyler Murray can work with that.
Yeah.
There is really some good opportunity over there in Arizona. And let's not forget David Mother effing Johnson, because he is outstanding. I know it seems like forever ago,
I'll be honest,
but it was 2 years ago when David Johnson was awesome.
On the onside kick, I completely messed up and thought that last year was his injury season. Got called out by a commenter, and I loved it because I was like, oh, my fault. That's how much I forgot about David Johnson last year. I thought he was injured last year. I thought his 2016 year, when he played one game, was last year because the Cardinals were just irrelevant for the entire season. Also, another wide receiver, rookie. I don't know how much he plays, but he's an interesting speed option, is Andy Isabella, who they traded up to get Dave's wonder darling in the possible kind of sleepers for the NFL draft. But yeah, Kyler Murray, you bring up a good point with Washington not having any weapons, but like Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins are the two that you're going to look at this year. Daniel Jones, unless Eli gets injured, is probably not playing. Drew Lock might not play because of Joe Flacco. Will Grier has Cam Newton ahead of him. Jarrett Stidham has the GOAT and Tom Brady ahead of him. And then the other ones, I don't even think see the field with who they have. But yeah, Kyler Murray is just the one where if I didn't have a quarterback in place or I wanted to stack up on playmakers like running back, tight end, wide receiver early on, Kyler Murray might be a guy I look at later and go, hey, I don't need to take one of those top quarterbacks because Lamar Jackson did fine last year. And I know he did fine because I had him on my fantasy team. And Kyler Murray could do the same for players this year in fantasy. Go get those running backs, go get those wide receivers, and then kind of sleep on quarterback and go Kyler Murray later on.
So, Ricky, now moving to the next topic, our final topic, and talking about quarterbacks.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs schedule
has been released. Friendly.
It is certainly not friendly, but it's not supposed to be, I don't think, when teams are good or have been good. But there's some factors here in Kansas City. They have Damian Williams at running back, Carlos Hyde to back him up. We'll see what ends up happening there. Damian Williams was really solid for the Chiefs last year when he was called upon. Will that continue? Tyreek Hill. Is there going to be a Tyreek Hill moving forward with Kansas City? Is he going to still be on the team?
Yeah,
I know right now he's. I believe did they put him on the commissioners?
The last
list?
thing I saw was that he might have been, but a simple Google search will rectify that. But yeah, last time I saw they were thinking about it. Yeah, no, he is. He is because he appealed it, and the appeal did not go through. So I believe he's on the commissioner's list. But like you said, the one thing that I'll throw out there is the Chiefs, they didn't even wait for the Kareem Hunt situation to kind of be sorted out. They just said, you're done.
You're done.
Like, bye.
But
I don't know
this
what
is
weird sound that I
but
made
this
with
is
my mouth.
this is now a second guy who is uber talented, and I think and it was so close to a big time deal. That deal's not going to happen. The running backs, the wide receivers waiting in the wings, Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, Sammy Coates, and McCole Hardman. Hardman, who was drafted, I think, to possibly replace, quote unquote, replace Tyreek Hill. And then, of course, you have the wide receiver / tight end monster, Travis Kelce. This season, possibly some chips stacked against Mahomes in terms of schedule, in terms of possibly not having Tyreek Hill for the foreseeable future, maybe ever again. What are your thoughts with Kansas City and specifically with Pat Mahomes, the Madden 2020 cover boy?
Well, the thing that I'm kind of looking at here is, so I'm looking at an article by Mike Clay on ESPN, and he kind of mapped out some of like the easiest opposing defenses right now coming in: Arizona, New England Patriots, Baltimore Ravens. The toughest opposing defenses: the Chiefs #1, Oakland #2, which kind of surprising to me because they were only a 4-win team last year, and then Houston at #3. Then you look and you've got easiest overall, and then he goes through some overall schedules. But like for me, looking at their schedule, they are done no favors. Like to start the year, you're going to Jacksonville, who, let's be honest, Jacksonville's biggest problem last year, their wide receivers were decimated because you had both of the Allens were gone, and then Marquise Lee got injured. Lee is going to be back. They have D.D. Westbrook also in that in that wide receiver core. They are going to be a better team. Oh, they also have somebody who is being compared to Peyton Manning because he threw 7 touchdowns in a game. Mr. Nick Foles, who is also a Super Bowl MVP for the Eagles. That is going to be a tough game to start the year. Then you have that Oakland team in Oakland. I'm not high on Oakland, but let's see what they do with their revamped defense, their Antonio Bryant, Tyrell Williams. They could be a better team this year. They've got Houston on the schedule. Denver's going to be a different team this year because of the fact the offense is better. Joe Flacco is an upgraded quarterback. Noah Fant gives them a young receiving option at tight end. Green Bay, they've got a tough defense that just got more pieces added to it in the draft. Minnesota's a tough team. The Chargers, you get them twice a year. Like, I look at it, and the thing I worry about, if let's say you're a dynasty owner or you're thinking about going Patrick Mahomes in the draft, I would say this. If you are going Patrick Mahomes or have Patrick Mahomes, you might need a different option for the playoffs. Because I look at it, New England on the road, I don't care what any rankings say, New England's a tough team. Denver could be a better team this year, especially with a Vic Fangio
Chris
defense.
Harris ever get that trade he was looking for?
Not yet. But Vic Fangio defense, like, I don't know if it's going to be like Chicago year one, but eventually it's going to be like Chicago.
But they'll have their act cleaned up from last year.
Exactly. And, like, the big thing is the Bears needed to trade for Khalil Mack. The Broncos have Von Miller already. So, like, Vic Fangio doesn't need to find his guy. He's got his guy.
He's found him,
And the thing with Oakland, too, that I actually just found out today because I completely forgot about it, you know who's on that defense now for the Oakland Raiders? the other Brandon Marshall, number 54, not the the one that always gets tweeted at when Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver,
he's like, it's not
had a bad
me.
game. Yeah, he's on Oakland now. So like that defense, and they have that. Actually, they have them coming off the bye in Week 13, then New England on the road, then Denver at home, Chicago. Like think about that. Week 16. If you're going to be a fantasy league and have a championship game in Week 16. Sit Patrick Mahomes. Khalil Mack is going to be all over him. It's going to be nom time for Khalil Mack because he's just going to be eating all day.
But see, I think
all day.
I don't think you're giving enough credit to Patrick Mahomes, though.
But no, the thing that I'm saying is I'm not saying it's going to be like a 5-point game. But like even if Patrick Mahomes has a 12, 15-point game, even if he has a 17-point game, that's not Patrick Mahomes fantasy. And that's what I could see. I could see a mediocre game for some is Patrick Mahomes' floor. And I think there's a possibility could have a rough time when you really need your players the most because you need in the playoffs, one and done, you're gone. That's when the schedule gets toughest for the Chiefs.
And I understand that, but I also don't want anyone to downplay what Patrick Mahomes can do. Yeah. And he's made some incredible plays in his very short time.
Like throwing it with a left hand.
But it's not just that. It's just his awareness to find guys. The game against Baltimore where he just chucked it up for Tyreek Hill and Tyreek went and got it. That's why a huge loss if there's no Tyreek Hill. That will be a big, I think, knock to Pat Mahomes, but even with an outstanding defense like the Bears have, even with Khalil Mack coming at him, Pat Mahomes is a really good quarterback. He's very aware, and he's able. His escapability is really outstanding. But there will be, I think, some tough games this year, and I talk about it, and I can't say it enough. If there's no Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs are going to have some struggles because they don't currently have a wide receiver on the roster already at the Tyreek Hill level. They don't. They may have a guy or some guys on the roster who could be at that level or close to it, but none that are there. So depending on how long he's suspended, if the Chiefs cut him, or trade him, whatever it might be, that is going to be a big blow because outside of Travis Kelce, that's his number one guy.
Well, and here's another thing I want to throw out there is, and this was Patrick Mahomes coming into this year anyways, is last year, if you remember, 28 points against the Chargers, 39 points against Pittsburgh, 25-23 before he had his first down-to-earth game against Jacksonville and had 16. I expect Patrick Mahomes to be good. He'd be the top-ranked quarterback in my fantasy rankings if we did them this year for preseason. But I look at it and I go, I don't think he comes out as hot as he did last year because we have a full year of tape on him. And also in the 3 games that he had kind of mediocre fantasy performances, first off, the only time Jacksonville saw them, which was in KC, held them to 16 fantasy points, which for Patrick Mahomes, that's a bad game. Like, that's the thing with Patrick Mahomes. His bad game is like oh, cool, I got 16 points from Kirk Cousins today. Like, that is what Patrick Mahomes is. And the other 2, 18 points against the Chargers. The second time they saw him that year. The first time, week 1 of the season, they didn't know what to expect. They got lit up for 28 fantasy points. He had 4 touchdowns in that game. The second time through, only 18. 10 less fantasy points than the one before. Then Oakland, the first time they met, he had 4 touchdowns, 33 fantasy points. Second time they saw him, 17 fantasy points. And I wonder if it's not going to be a huge jump down. It's not like he's going from 39 points, 28 points to like 7 points. But I wonder if he's going to have more 15, 16, 17, 18 games this year Because A, teams have seen him before, especially the divisional teams. Plus, like I mentioned, teams like Denver's defense is getting better. Chicago's defense is an elite defense. They showed it last year. Can they replicate what they did last year? We'll see. But they're an elite defense. Minnesota's defense is nothing to be joked around with. Houston's defense can't be joked around with. Like, the amount of defenses on this team that are good to great puts a little bit of a question mark next to Patrick Mahomes, to where I don't know if he'll have as many 30-point games as he had last year. It might be a come-down-to-earth year where it's like 15 to 28 is his window, and he might have an occasional 30 game.
I still think that you're not giving him enough credit like you did at some points last year.
Last
and then
year,
you finally had your come to Jesus
last
moment
year.
with him.
Last year he was on the Dak Prescott train in my mind. He is off the Dak Prescott train. He is the best quarterback in fantasy. If you said, Ricky, take a quarterback right now at number one, gun to my head, he would be the one that I pick. I just wonder with the schedule, like you said, Kareem Hunt's not there. Tyreek Hill's not there. Another big question is, now without Gronk, is Travis Kelce now going to become the number one number one tight end in fantasy? There's a question.
If Travis Kelce
is going to become the number one tight end in fantasy.
Well, he already has been.
Well, it was Gronk.
No, it wasn't.
Healthy. When Gronk was healthy.
Gronk was healthy last year. It was Kelce.
But I mean, like, overall, the first tight end that people went for usually off the board in fantasy drafts was Gronk. Is that going to be Kelce now?
Oh, it should have been him before.
Or will it be Zach Ertz because of what he had last year?
Kelce and Ertz. They're the
Although
Kelce and Ertz were the top two
Ertz
tight ends
doesn't
even
have
with
Foles.
Gronk.
He's got Carson Wentz now, but yeah. Like, that's another question with there. Is Patrick Mahomes going to have to rely too much on Travis Kelce because of no Kareem Hunt, no Tyreek Hill, depending on what happens with Tyreek Hill?
Kelce's numbers could possibly go up even more this year than what they were. And Kelce's numbers the last couple of years have been really, really good, over 1,000 yards. And I think we're looking around 7-8 touchdowns, if not more. But his numbers should definitely skyrocket if there's no Tyreek Hill and if there are struggles with the wide receiver core. But I look for Patrick Mahomes to have another really good year. And I understand, and I know this is the silly part on my end, but I do understand the Madden curse. It has gotten a lot of people, and he is on Madden.
True.
And that is, Madden takes people out. It does. And if you put two people on the cover, it'll get them both, Larry Fitzgerald and Troy Polamalu. Do you remember that year, Ricky? That was insane. So I think that is going to play into it. I do believe that because I believe
were
that
you nervous when you saw him get the cover?
A little bit.
Because you're a Chief fan too. If people don't know, you're a Chief fan on top of being a Bear fan.
A little bit. There's gonna be something that goes wrong with Pat Mahomes this season. I'm not sure what it's gonna be, but something's gonna go wrong.
And I know you said last topic, but I want to throw this in at the very end before we wrap things up. And this is a little mini debate that people are having right now. Okay. You have the number one pick in the fantasy football draft. You're going to go running back. Do you take Zeke or Saquon?
Saquon.
The numbers back you up before you give your answer. Saquon last year had a total of 295 fantasy points, 11 touchdowns, just over 1,300 yards on the ground. He's projected 283 this year. Ezekiel Elliott had 252 last year, only 6 touchdowns on the ground, is projected 265 this year. So the numbers, both of them, projected and last year, go with you. I would also go Saquon over Zeke. But why would you go Saquon over Zeke?
Because he is the best player on that team.
It's bottom line.
The best player on that team. And because they have struggled so mightily, I think, with the pass, is they have to go with him. They have to go with him with anything. I mean, how many times? And also because over in Dallas, especially when Amari Cooper came in, there was not as much of a need for Dak Prescott to be looking at Ezekiel Elliott to check it down. He was able to go up top, whether it was Amari Cooper or whether it was Michael Gallup, when he started to finally get a little bit more involved. So I guess I think that you have Eli Manning still there with the New York Giants. It's going to continue to be check down. Now there's no Odell. There's only Sterling Shepard. Yes, there is now. Why am I forgetting his name? Because I should not. From the Lions to the Giants.
Golden Tate. Thank you.
I apologize, Golden. I know you're listening.
Tate, Sterling Shepard, Corey Coleman also.
So sucks. But there's going to be more check down, and more opportunities for, especially for a Pepper League, PPR. Yeah. I just like to call it Pepper. Because I'm a weirdo. 10 catches, at least. You could have 80 yards, got 18 points right there. And that's not counting anything you do running the football, any touchdowns. You already have 18 points right there. He screwed me number of times last year when I played against him. And it was those type of games. 10 catches for 50 yards, 60 yards, whatever it was. And then you get 2 touchdowns. He'd have 100 yards rushing, and I'd already lost the game, and he was the first guy to play.
Yeah. I mean, that's
why I go Saquon.
His 4 worst games last year was week 2 against Dallas. He only got 11 carries, got 11 points. Week 8, 13 carries against Washington, 11 points. Week 10, 20 carries against San Fran, 10 points. And 14 carries against Tennessee, 6 points. Worst games. But his best game was, Tampa Bay, where he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, probably had some receiving as well. Yeah, he had a touchdown on 2 receptions in that one. He had 33. Here's the interesting, because I'd go with Saquon too. I just think he's the better option fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
Plus, I have my doubts about the Cowboys. But it's interesting.
No one doubts the Cowboys.
It's interesting, though, because, I feel like the Giants are not going to have many weapons where it's like Saquon's going to have to do it all, especially with no OBJ, where, like you said, the Cowboys have weapons. The Cowboys have Amari Cooper, and Dak Prescott isn't going to – yes, they'll hand it off to Zeke, but Dak Prescott's the guy. Nobody trusts Eli. Eli's almost out the door. They drafted Daniel Jones at 6. Saquon's the guy for the Giants. Here's the interesting thing to me. 2 questions. First off, if you had to take a guess in the ESPN fantasy draft, that they had 12 of them in this fantasy draft. So Tim Hasselbeck, number 1, took Saquon Barkley. Then you had Andre Snellings, took Zeke at 2. Eric Carabell took a running back at 3. Who would you guess he selected with the 3rd pick in their fantasy draft?
Saquon, Zeke?
Saquon and Zeke are off the board. The first 6 picks were running backs.
Okay. Le'Veon Bell?
Le'Veon Bell was not. Le'Veon was number 10. Field Yates took him.
Okay, let me go out on a limb here. Is this a go out on a limb type of pick?
A little bit.
Is it David Johnson?
No, David Johnson went 6 by Daniel Dopp.
Okay.
Daniel Dopp.
Okay.
So you got 4 of the top 12 picks.
I'm gonna guess one more time,
okay.
And I'm gonna be done.
Do you want a hint?
A little bit.
NFC.
Young guy?
Mm-hmm.
It's not from the Lions.
No, not the Lions.
Okay.
Right color, though. Similar color to the Lions. Similar color scheme to the Lions. Their quarterback stole some laptops in college. Got kicked out of his first school before winning a national championship.
Just tell me.
Christian McCaffrey. So Christian.
Oh, is it because he automatically overnight became Thanos?
Yeah. But I mean, Christian McCaffrey, like, here's how theirs went down. Christian McCaffrey went third. Then Alvin Kamara went. I thought Kamara would go above McCaffrey because now Alvin Kamara doesn't have Mark Ingram to take points away from. Will he be able
to
replicate that because he doesn't have Mark Ingram to kind of supplement him? Is that what you were going to ask?
I was going to say that, but for a full year, he did it well for 4 weeks, but for a full year, is Alvin Kamara going to hold up, no injuries, no letdown, keep at the same level that he's been at? Does that happen? That's my thought.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing.
I hope he does.
Here's the interesting things that I see from this, and this will be the last thing I mention before we wrap up. First off is that Todd Gurley went 8th in their draft. There were 7 players.
I have worries about him.
So Saquon, Zeke, McCaffrey, Kamara, Melvin Gordon went 7. David Johnson went 8th. Then DeAndre Hopkins went. That's the second thing. So first, Todd Gurley went 8th. Number 2, how high do you go for DeAndre Hopkins? Because I had him on my team. He is the wide receiver to have. The one.
Hopkins?
Doesn't drop a thing. Yeah. Like, how high? Like, do you think 8 is too, or do you think 7 is too low for him? Would you take Hopkins over any of the 6 running backs mentioned? Barkley, Zeke, McCaffrey, Kamara, Gordon, and Johnson.
Maybe over Johnson.
Because I would probably take him, I would say above Gordon too, maybe, potentially. Because Gordon got injured. That's the thing with me. Because I had him on my team. Gordon got injured. That's the big thing that set him back. I would take DeAndre Hopkins with the 5th pick if I had it. The other interesting thing to me, Patrick Mahomes was the first quarterback off the board. You want to know what round and what pick he went? 3rd round, 11th pick. That's when the first quarterback went off the board. There were 14 wide receivers taken at this point, 17 running backs taken at this point. The last wide receiver right before him was Stephon Diggs. The last running back right before him was Marlon Mack. 3 tight ends. George Kittle was the 3rd. Travis Kelce was 1. Zach Ertz was 2. All of those guys. So 17 running backs, 14 receivers, 3 tight ends, all taken before Patrick Mahomes was the first quarterback off the board in the 3rd round. Next one was Deshaun Watson in the 11th pick of the 4th round. So just interesting things that I'm already looking at, thinking about drafts for fantasy football.
No, I love it. I'm always interested by that stuff, and I always am interested by how we do our draft.
Yeah, well, ours is like
because we change it up and we make it a little fun.
Like for those of you who are new, how we do it, and Mark is the brainchild of this, is everyone's name goes on a ping pong ball and goes into a kind of like bingo machine. Every single round, the order is drawn at random. So I could have the first pick in the first round, but then the last pick in the second pick in the third. You don't know where you're drafting. And then each round is a position. So we pull a position too. So everyone's got to take running backs. Everyone has to take quarterbacks. And it's kind of fun, but at the same time, it throws the draft strategy out the window.
It's a little tough.
It makes my job easier. And that's why I know you won the league last year.
I didn't.
I thought you did. Who won it then last year?
I got second the last 2 damn years.
I thought that you won it because Mark brought up yesterday that he still has to pay you the money.
And I was thinking that as we were talking that I still need that money.
And he was like, he wanted to give it to me, but he didn't have it, so you'll get it next week.
That's exciting.
But I mean, I thought you won it when he was talking about that. But yeah, we do it a little differently, so it takes that draft strategy out the window. That's why when we did ours, I was really excited because you get that strategy back.
Yeah.
That I'm just jonesing for and I miss.
Jonesing!
It's my new favorite phrase, Brandon.
It was on this podcast. Mm-hmm. But Ricky, anything else to add to anything we talked about tonight?
Football's back, baby. That's all I'm going to say. The only thing we have to decide, and maybe the commenters can help us with it, is if you want us to do rankings, positional rankings for football, because that was fun last year with Mark. Would love them do it to you if they want to see it and if you would want to do them.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, Ricky, thank you very much. Another fun episode of What's Your Fantasy. And again, I know we're in baseball season, but we came at you with a little bit of the NFL because...
Cubs are on fire, man. Cubs are on fire.
Because we... ESPN is already putting out their stuff, so we wanted to be able to talk a little bit. Draft is over. Now these guys are on their teams. Talk a little bit about what rookies we think are going to have an impact and things coming up this next NFL season. But to Ricky's point, Cubs are on fire. So for all those Cub fans that were like, we're 2-7, season's over. You, my friend, were one of them. I'm done watching. I'm done.
Dude,
I'm done.
We were such
this is why you cannot talk to Cubs fans because they are just nuts.
We were asked to start the year. Remember when people were talking about Joe Madden being fired? At least I wasn't on that train. At least I wasn't on firing Joe Madden because there are people that were. There's people that were like, hey, let's fire Joe Madden.
Cubs fans, unreasonable, ridiculous, crazy. But let's fire the best manager we've had in forever because we want something better.
Well, you know what blows my mind? The thing that
blows my mind.
The thing that blows my mind is the only team to give us a problem since the middle of April, the Marlins. The
9-win Marlins?
Yeah, the Marlins are pretty much the only team to give us some problems. Them and the Brewers. Well, the Brewers are going to give you some problems. Like, that was the series where it's like we lost 13-10, then we won 14-8, and then we lost, and we went 1 of 2 that series. But it's like ever since the middle of April, we just started steamrolling. And the real thing that got us going, I want to say, is that Seattle series. I know we had won some games going into that, but that 2-game sweep, man, just Kyle Schwarber hitting a big home run, really woke us up, and we needed to because then we swept the Cardinals because St. Louis, I hate them. I hate them because I'm a Cub fan.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for us today. Again, really a lot of fun talking football with you. I haven't talked football in a while, so it was, especially NFL football, so it was really fun to bring that back and talk with you about that again. We are always looking for new supporters to MVP, to this podcast, to the channel in general, and you can do that. You can be that person if you're not already, and if you're not, what the heck? Why not? Head over to Patreon. Head over to Patreon.com and become a patron. Again, just for $1 a month, you can help support this channel and some of the initiatives that we're doing. Which one of them is trying to get a new studio. It is
initiative. That's a big word.
It's a word I like to use because I'm smart, and not everyone is, so they can't use it. Yeah. But we are smart here at MVP, so we use big words like initiatives.
I don't know. I like small words,
like it,
like French fry.
Ricky likes food words. But anyways, I'm rambling. Again, go be a patron because we really need your support. We need your help. We want it, and we certainly appreciate it. It does not go unrecognized, and we certainly are appreciative of your help, your generosity, and your support for what we do here because you enjoy what we do, which is why you help support. So for Ricky Widmer, my man over there, I'm Brandon Swanson saying so long until next time, everybody. Take care.